Welcome to this HTML crash course for complete beginners. This is for absolute beginners. So you know what? Let's get started with it. Now, before we get started, let's talk about some things. The first thing is that I want you to know that this course is designed for absolute beginners, for complete beginners. I'm going to walk you through everything after this tutorial. Even if you've never heard about HTML before, you will be able to understand everything about HTML. Yeah, I'm going to walk you through everything and you're going to see everything you need to know to fully understand HTML. The next thing is that this tutorial has really little CSS, and I just want to warn you because HTML without CSS is really, and I just want to warn you, HTML without CSS looks really dry, and the whole point is that HTML is like the blueprint. So with HTML, you get the foundation, and then you add CSS and then some JavaScript to really get a fully functioning website. But this is a HTML tutorial, and you should understand HTML fully before you go to CSS and then before you go to JavaScript. Yeah, so we're going to focus only on HTML5. And we're going to use slides and examples to really cement these concepts and fully understand what we're talking about. You need to understand that this is a marathon and you need to exercise patience because for sure I know you see videos that say learn HTML in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. All those things are bullcrap. It's practically impossible to teach all these concepts within 5 minutes or 10 minutes. That's why this tutorial is so this length because I really took my time to explain everything and to really make you understand it. And after the tutorial, you should feel confident about it. You shouldn't feel that you may be rushed into it and all that. So that's why. Now let's get started. Now, what is HTML? HTML is a hypertext markup language. It is not a programming language. That's why we say it's a markup language for creating web pages and documents. It's the building block. It's like the blueprint of the web. It's the blueprint of your web page. Without HTML, there is no web page. Now, what's needed to get started? What is needed is we need a web browser, and you can choose any one you want. There's Chrome. I'm using Chrome. You can use Firefox. You can use Safari. You can use Opera. You can use Edge. The next thing is a text editor. And we have Visual Studio Code. We have Sublime Text, Atom, Bracket, and Notepad++, and even probably more. But yeah, a text editor is just where we're going to put the code. This is where we're going to write our HTML code. This is where everything is going to practically happen. So yeah, that's why it's really important. Most of these text editors come for Windows and Mac and Linux. So you just choose your operating system and you download them. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code for this tutorial, but you're free to use whatever you want. How to create an HTML file. The file must end with .html extension. This is what makes it run in our web browser. And your home file is going to be called index.html. And this index.html is a way of telling the browser that this is your root file, this is your home page. And you can see right here in this example that the index.html file right here is the home page. The index.html file is the home page, and then any other pages you create, like contact or whatever you name them, .html, those will be registered as slash or forward slash the contact.html. You can see that www.yourwebsitename.com. You can see that loads in the index.html file. The contact.html is going to be registered as www.yourwebsitename.com/, then contact.html. So that's how it goes. Now, since we're using VS Code, the way we create a HTML page is that we first go to our VS Code, we double click on it. Now we can see this window right here. And if you have other stuff that you've maybe coded in other language, all you need to do is go to your file and click on new window. You'll get a new window. And when you get your new window, the next thing you do is that you click right here on this file explorer. And in this file explorer, you can open a file. So you click open a file. And right here, you don't necessarily need to open a file, only if you have a file you want to put this project in. If you don't, you just click right here, you say new file. So we create a file. I will call this HTML tutorial. Click enter. And now we click on the file and select that file. Now we've selected that file, and you can see right here, the file is called HTML tutorial. So now anything we place or put, it's going to be inside this file. Now let's look at the options right here. Right here, this one says new file. If we want to create a new file, if we want to create a new folder inside this folder, we can click on that, and this is to refresh the Explorer. So right now, what we need to do is create a new file. We click on that, and we'll call this file index.html. Press enter, and now we have our index.html file. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to place a h1 tag and say hello world. Save it, and now I'm using live server. And if you want live server, all you need to do is go to this extension right here, you click on it, and then you search on live server. Click right here, and this is the live server you should download. You install it. It's from ritwikiday.liveserver. You install this, and after that, all you need to do is just come right here to your file explorer. You can cancel this, and you right click and you click open with live server. Now you can see the hello world, and you can see right here we have / index.html. So this is the page, and we've created a HTML page. Now, what is a HTML tag? A HTML tag, these are individual elements in the HTML document. So, and they normally come with opening tag and also a closing tag. Not all HTML tags come with opening and closing tags. Like we can see right here, we have the area, we have the image, we have the HR. Closing tag is identical to the opening tag except that it starts with a /. So the closing tags always start with a /. You can see right here, this is the closing tag, this is the closing tag, and yeah, that's it for tags. Now, the HTML page structure. You can see right here that the page structure, we start with our HTML, and this HTML has an opening HTML and also a closing HTML. Then we have the head. This head has an opening and closing, and then we have the styles and scripts. In the body, we also have opening body and closing body, and we can have our H1s, P tags. We're going to explain all this soon in the video. Now, this is the same HTML page structure, but we've put a doc type right here. And this doc type is just a way of actually telling HTML what type of HTML we're working on. So I told you we're only going to work on HTML5. So for HTML5, this is the way we put the doc type. The doc type is a declaration. The doc type declaration is an instruction to the web browser about what version of HTML the web page is written in. So that's why we have to put the doc type right here. And I will let you know that the doc type is not case sensitive. And what this means is that you could put it all in capital like this, or you could also put it in small letters. But the conventional way is using all capitals. But if you put it in small letters, it wouldn't change anything. It would work perfectly. So you can see here one of the advantages of using HTML5. Writing the declaration is really short and simple, but for other HTML versions, you can see it's a lot of work and it's just something that you don't need to do. Now the first thing we want to do is actually put our doc type, and the way we do this is we use the less than sign and then an exclamation mark, and you can see that VS Code is actually giving me a suggestion here, and I can just click on it and it gives us doc type dash, and when I say dash, I mean the space here, HTML. So this here is the official declaration of HTML5. Before we continue, I just want to let you know that doc type is not case sensitive. So you could write doc type in small letters, and you can see here there's no error. This would work too, but the official way of doing it, or the way that most developers use, is with the capital letters. So we're going to keep that at capital letter. So doc type. The next thing we want to do is put our HTML tag, and the way we do that is we write HTML, and now you can see that VS Code emmet abbreviation that we just installed is actually giving us a suggestion. So we can just click on that, and you can see right here that we have our HTML tag. And I hope you notice that this comes with an opening tag and a closing tag. And later on in this tutorial, you will see that not all elements come with an opening and closing tag. So you can see this is the opening tag and here's the closing tag. And the difference between the opening and closing tag is this forward slash right here. So this forward slash indicates a closing tag and the opening tag is just the HTML without any forward or backward slash. And later I'll tell you why those ones that come with only opening tags are like that and the meaning behind them. So yeah, keep your heads up for that. Now in the HTML, we have two tags. We have the head tag, and we can write it by just writing head and press the enter. And then we get an opening head tag and a closing head tag. You can just press the tab again to create some space inside. And below the closing head tag, we want to put the other tag, which is the body tag. And we just write body and press enter. And now you can see that we have also our body tag. Now inside every HTML file, you have your HTML tag, and inside your HTML tag, you have two tags, which is the head tag and the body tag. Now, what do we use this head element for? We use this head element to give the browser information about this web page. So for example, you can put here title, and you can see title comes with an opening tag and a closing tag. And inside this title, I'll put my first web page. And this title right here, you're going to see that it appears right here on the tab because it's given information. When I press save, now we can see my first web page. Now you can see that after pressing save, we can see that this my first web page is showing up here on the tab, but nothing is showing right here. This place is actually for the body. If we want things to show here, we'd have to put them in the body element. Now, a lot of times when you're building websites, you actually want to see the exact source code that is running on the browser. And the way we do that is with Control U. And I want you to ignore all this right here. Because why you should ignore it is that you can see number one, it says script right here. And number two, it says JavaScript. So, and this is not a JavaScript tutorial. This is a HTML tutorial. What I want you to see though is the head part, which is right here. And you can see in the head, we have this title. And I hope this looks familiar because we just made it. And it says my first web page. And now with Control U, you can see right here. I don't want to talk because this is not a JavaScript tutorial, but I want you to understand what is actually being put here. And you can see this place says code injected by live server. I know earlier we installed live server, which is an extension that whenever we save our HTML file, this window gets reloaded. So this is the JavaScript that actually makes that possible. We don't need to care about it, but I just want you to know that. But the whole point of this Control U is that I want you to see the code that is actually being parsed. And it's also nice to see that when you use the Control U, you also see the JavaScript that here we're not actually seeing. So that's why I brought up that and wanted you to understand how that works. Another thing that you're going to use a lot and is very important when you're using Chrome and other browsers is the developer's dev tool. And you can do that by pressing F12. And now you can see it just appeared right here. You can see we have different things. We have the console, we have elements, we have sources, network, and even some more memory application and all that. Either you use F12 or you could also use inspect. And you right click and then you click on inspect and you get the same result. Now with the dev tool, you can see that we have the console, we have sources, we have network, and we also have element. And I want us to look at this element part. In the element part, you can see we have our body right here. And right now we have nothing in the body. That's why we can't really click on it. Apart from this whole live server JavaScript stuff that we already talked about earlier. But we can see the head right here. And when I click on it, we can see our title tag. And you can also use this section right here, this element section, to actually edit some stuff. I can see our dog type right here, and it's a little bit transparent, but the other tags are actually able to be clicked on. When you edit some stuff in the element tab, it's not going to stick. And when I mean stick, it's not going to be saved forever. It's just going to be saved for this session. And when I mean saved for this session, I mean that when you reload this page, it's going to be gone. It's not like our VS Code that when we edit some stuff or add stuff to it, that it actually stays there. Yeah, let's get back to our Visual Studio Code. And before we move further, I want to show you comments. The way we make comments in HTML is that we use the less than sign, and then we use the exclamation mark, and then we put a dash in between. And you can see that when I put the second dash, VS Code actually knows what I'm gonna do, and it gives me the whole form. So this is how a comment looks like. And the first comment we're gonna put there is headings. And just you can add more if you want it to be more. It's not gonna affect it. And what you will notice when I save it, nothing shows up here because it doesn't parse it. Whenever you put this and this there, HTML knows this is a comment and this shouldn't be parsed into the page. And a comment is just for the developer. It's for you to understand your code better. It's for other developers to understand your code better. And it's a nice thing to do because believe me, when you come back to a code that has been maybe a year or 6 months, your comments will really help you understand the way you went about building the website. Now, what are inline and block level elements? Let's start with block level elements. Block level elements start a new line. They take the full width available. Example of block level elements are divs, p tags, forms, h1 to h6. Now for inline elements do not start a new line and they only take the necessary width. So from the name you can see they're inline elements. An example of inline elements are spans, anchor tags, image, button, inputs. Now when it comes to headings, there are 6 different tags we can use. We can use h1 through h6. Alright, so let's go ahead and put a h1 in here. And we press H and 1, and H is short for headings. Hopefully you got that by now. And yeah, we'll put inside my first head. And I hope you notice that this it gives it a bigger text, but I don't also expect you to know because you haven't seen the other ones. So hopefully when we put H2 and H3, you'll see that this is actually the biggest text. And the browser has some course style in it by default, of course. And each one is going to make the text bigger or smaller. And it's also going to add padding around the edges. And this is to also make sure that the next one I put below it, there's space between them so they don't get too close. So everything is going to look actually with the right spacing and equal spacing. Yeah, and this is a H1. That's why I give it my first head. Please don't think about something else when I write this. But yeah, now let's take a look at a H2. I put H and then 2 and you can press enter and we get it, we say second my second head, save it, and we can see it right here. And you can see that this H2 that says my second head is a little bit smaller, and hopefully you can notice the padding too, the equal spacing between the first H1 and the second H1. And now I'm going to show you from 2 to 6. Say H3. We're going to copy this right here, put it inside, put third, copy this, put it inside, change this to 4, and you can see that when I change 4 here, this automatically changes. This is thanks to Emmet and VS Code, so that's why VS Code is the best when you're doing stuff like this. And I'll change it to 4th, 5, change here to 5th, and now 6th, 6th. And we save it, and now you can see it right here. We can see my first head, my second head, my third head, my fourth head, my fifth head, and my sixth head. And you can see the equal spacing around them. This is what we talked about earlier. And you can see that each gets smaller and smaller. So that's the whole point of this, is that you probably sometimes will need the smallest, sometimes you will need the biggest, and it all depends on what you're doing. Now you can change the sizes of these elements right here through CSS, but this is a HTML course, so yeah, if you're using only HTML right now, all this will be fixed. And we are going to get to CSS in the next video in this series I'm doing, this web development series I'm doing right here. CSS is so crazy that you could literally make even a H6 tag look this big. So that's why CSS came into the picture. It's like the crazy wife. Now, hopefully you understand H tags. And yeah, the next thing we're going to go through is paragraph. And now I'm going to put another comment. And remember, test yourself. Do you know how to put a comment? Well, I'm going to show you again. You put the less than sign and then exclamation mark, then 2 slashes. And if you're using VS Code, it will complete it for you. This is the closing of the comment. And I want you to see something right here. If I don't have this closing, I'm going to copy it and then delete it. You can see here, this is not the same color as this. And that is because I want you to understand that this other part is the closing. This is me saying, I want this comment to be closed here. And anything I put inside here should be a comment. Just wanted to go through that a little bit more. And inside the comment, I'm going to put paragraph. Put a space right here so they look alike. Now a paragraph is just denoted by the P. And you press enter, and you can see it right here. We have an opening P and a closing P. Now nothing is showing up because we haven't put anything inside the paragraph tag. Now I don't want this P tag to be on the same line like these H tags are. And now you can see we have a bigger space between them. So now if you want to create some dummy text, because when you're creating websites, sometimes you don't want to focus on what is going to be inside the website. You just want to create the whole environment, create the whole structure. In that case, you just use this lorem or lorem, and to denote how many of this text you want, you can put like 15 and you press enter. And now I save it, and now you can see that we have 15 in the length of this dummy text or this Lauren Ibsen text. I really don't know what it says. I don't know what language it is. I think sometimes when I try to read it, I think I'm reading like Hebrew or Jewish, but I might be totally wrong, so don't take me on that. Now the paragraph, just like the heading, it has some default styling. And one of the default styling is that it has a display block. And what does a display block mean? A display block means it's a block level element. Now, if we were to add another paragraph and we put a p tag, press enter, press the enter again to create some space. And in this case, I'm just going to put lorem, and I'm not going to put 10 or 15 like I did earlier in the first p tag. I'm just going to put lorem, and I want you to see what happens. When you put only lorem without displaying 10, 15, or how many text you want it to display, it's going to just give you a default. So I just wanted to show you the different parts. That if you want a certain amount, you can put, I want lorem 10. Or if you just want a default and you know the default already, you just put lorem. And now you can see that it's automatically on a new line, and it has also a margin. And I'm not sure how much margin it is, but the thing you will know is that the margin is congruent. That means if we added another one, it would be the same margin. Now, for us to go to the developers tool, do you remember what we do? Don't worry, I'm here. I'm going to tell you. We press F12, and now we're in the developers tool. And now you can see everything we've put on our body tag. And whenever I highlight on any of those tags, you can see this right here. It shows up and it shows us what element we're actually highlighting on. And we go to the P tag. You see this arrow right here. When you click it, it basically opens it up for you. Click it right here and it opens it up for you. And let's just scroll down. Or let's take this developer. No, go back to element. Let's take this developer tool down a little bit. So right now we can see. Now you can see that when we hover on each element, it shows us on the web page. And it even shows us the dimension. And just to show you over here right now, you can see this element of style and this style right here. This is basically showing us the CSS. And that's why I said earlier it's a block element, because you can see right here the display is block. And then the margin that we talked about that it has, it's margin 8 pixels. I just want to make it clear we're not going to go over margin, paddings, and all that, because we're going to go over them in the CSS tutorial that's going to come up after this. So keep your heads up for that. Subscribe to the channel, and so you can get notified when that comes up. And yeah, that's it. If you want to know what margin is, okay, I'm just going to tell you margin is the spacing around the element. That's all for CSS. You're not getting more, maybe a little bit, but yeah. Now, tags can either be inline or block level elements. Therefore, inline elements, they do not start a new line when you use them. They take only the necessary width, while with block elements, they start a new line and they take the full width available. So this is the difference between inline elements and block elements. Hopefully you got that. You can always rewind the video if you don't get it. Repetition helps with stuff like this. So rewind it to understand. An example of block level elements are divs, h1, h6, p tags, form, and we'll discuss all this. So don't worry if you don't understand or know any of them, but you should know h1 to 6 and p tags. Example of inline elements are span, img, which is short for image, a, which is short for anchor tags. What I feel you should know in block level is h1 to 6 and p tag because we just did that. And if you don't understand them, rewind the video and yeah, listen. Now I want us to use some inline elements and we will use them inside the p tag. And the first one we're going to look at is strong. I press enter. I'm going to highlight the closing strong tag and drag it to where I want it to close at. Yes, so I want it to be closed there. Save it. Now we can see the words that are in between the strong opening and closing tag. What this strong is basically doing right here, you can see it just made them bold. So using the strong tag is nice when you actually want to emphasize some words. When you want to make them stand out, you use the bold, and the way we do that in HTML is by using the strong tag. And you can see it's an inline element because no new line was created. It just changed whatever words are inside it. In HTML, this has to be bold, but if we add some CSS to it, we could just use this strong right here and we call it over at the CSS section, and we can add some font size. We can even make it lighter. We can do whatever we want to do with it. But yeah, in HTML, when you use the strong, it actually just makes it look like this. And why I'm bringing up CSS is that I also want you to understand why you will, after this course, need to understand CSS. But what I want you to understand with this strong is that it's a semantic tag for making whatever it's inside it to stand out. Now we can also do another one, and I'm gonna do the upper one right here. Create some space and put EM, and I can just say lorem 5, enter, and now save it. And you can see that that is right here, and now it's in italic form. It's not in the bold that we had earlier. And just like the strong tag, with this EM, you can always use some CSS to actually make it something totally different than what the default is. Now, I want us to talk about links. And to give a link, the way we do that is that we write A, and A is short for anchor tag. I press enter right here. And I'm sure you're asking, what is this right here? This is an attribute, and I will talk about attribute, but just for now, I want to put this A around something. Now I'm gonna wrap this and not go too far and just put it around this word right here. Like in a website if you want to know the meaning of the word. And yeah, we come back here. And when I save it, now you can notice that we have this word right here. We have it as a link. And as I said earlier, this href attribute is about the direction, the location. Location is a better word. The location that we want this link to take someone to whenever they click on it. This could be local, or it could be like Google or Amazon or Facebook. We just put their website. We go right here, write Google or GitHub. We copy and paste it, copy it, and then we paste it here, save it. And now when you click on the link, I'm gonna open a new tab. You can see that it takes us to GitHub. And what I mean by it could also be local is that, so if I had a file in this my folder right here, this HTML tutorial, just like this index.html, but that file has a different name like contact.html or services.html, I could just right click on that file and copy relative path, click on that and put it right here. And now I save it. And what happens right here is when I click on it, see what happens. You see the page reloads to this page because it's the index.html file. So hopefully you understand that. If you don't, try it out yourself to really understand. We're basically going back to this website. We're basically going back to this web page. We're basically going back to this index.html. We are in the index.html, but we have created a link that actually takes us back to index.html. So that's what happens when I click on it. What I feel you notice is that when we put GitHub right here and we save it, you can see that it goes to GitHub and we leave the index.html page. And when you're making websites, normally you don't want people to click on a link and leave your website. So the way to do that is we're going to add another attribute. So we're basically adding another information about this link to the browser. And we're going to give it an attribute of target. And in target, we do underscore right here, blank. We save it, and now when you click on it, you see another tab opens. And you can see our index.html tab is still there. So that's a good thing to know. And you can add a lot of attributes. What you should also do is you can go to anchor tag or a tag and also write attributes. When you do that, you see this W3 school. Here you will get some information about the different attributes you can add. You can see target right here. You have parent, you have self, you have top. So you can see there are different attributes than blank even. You can see rel, we have author, bookmark, ping, media, href, which is the one we just used, download, file name. So you can see that there are different attributes for this a tag. So most HTML tags have multiple attributes. And what these multiple attributes do is that they provide more information about a certain element. And another thing about these attributes is that they're always in the opening tag. And you know, I showed you we have the opening and the closing tag, and the closing tag is denoted by a forward slash before the name of the tag, but the opening tag is just the name of the tag. So in the opening tag, like right here, the attribute would be after the name of the tag, and it is always in the opening tag of the element. As we saw in the other examples, the href provided a link, which was more information about what the anchor tag, which is the link tag, does. And the link is one thing, but we also need information about where is the location of that link. So that's where the attribute href comes in. And you can see later on we added a target attribute, and the target attribute, as we saw earlier, is not required, but depending on what you need, we place the tag attributes within the opening tag, and they work in a key and value pair. And you can see right here with the example right here for the image, we have the key, which is scr, which is source, and value, which would be the location of the image file. In this other place, the key is this target right here, and then we have an equal sign, and then it shows us the value, which is this dash blank. So this is something to note, that attributes are always in a key value pair format. And what you should also notice is that the value is always in quotes. It can be double or single quotes, but they're always in quotes. And you can see it right here, the quote. You can also see right here, the quote. The usual standard, and when I say usual standard, is what most people use. And why you should do this, not because oh, I want you to do what most people do. I'm not saying it's bad or good, but why you should do that is that when people are reading your code as a programmer, it's good to actually do what most people do. And in this case, most people use the double quote. Not that if you use the single quote, someone wouldn't understand it. A good developer would understand that, but it's just industry standard to use the double quote. All right, guys, let's go back to our HTML. And the next thing I'm going to show you is a list. And we use a comment, then we write lists. Give it a space. This is preference. You don't have to do that, but I just feel it looks better with one space at each side. Now, there are basically two kinds of lists. We have the unordered list and the ordered list. Now, let me show you the difference. So let's start with the unordered list. And the unordered list is denoted by a UL, and then we press enter, so a UL tag. And after this, we press another enter to create some space. And in a UL, which is an unordered list, we need to have list items. And the way we denote list item is with an LI, and then we press the tab. And this LI is basically a bullet point. And this is why it's unordered list, because a bullet point is not an ordered list. An ordered list would be something that started with 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C, or even the Roman characters 1, 2, 3. So that's an ordered list. This is an unordered list, so that's why it's going to come in bullet points. For you to understand this, each list item has to come with an LI tag, or has to have an LI tag. Here we can put whatever we want, so I'm going to put bananas. Wow, I couldn't spell bananas. Bananas. Yeah, that's correct. And now we can put another li, say apples. We can put another li, say mangoes. Put another li, say papaya. I know I'm gonna say papaya and mango. Now, when we save that, we don't have to reload it because of live server, and we can see it right here. You can see the bullet points, and then we have bananas, apples, mango, papaya. And you can also see that I add some default padding. And now we can check our dev tool. And how do we do that? F12. We can see the dev tool. And when I also highlight on UL, you can see that there's some default styling. And the default stylings are paddings and margins. And now let's check the CSS. When we click on the UL, we can see this right here, the styling. And we can see that list style type has a style type of disk. You could change this in CSS to none so we don't get these bullet points, but in this case it's a disk. There are other ways to make an unordered list. It might be another shape than a disk, but in this case it's a disk. We can see margin block start is 1 EM, and EM is a unit of measurement which is very relative, and it's used most of the time for fonts because when you want to reduce the size of your page, and when I mean reduce the size of your web page, is when I do this or when I reduce like this or increase it. If you want your font size to increase or reduce relative to the size of your web page, then use the EM measuring unit. So you can see in this case we have margin block end 1 EM, then we have margin inline start 0 pixel, margin inline end 0 pixel, then we have padding inline start 40 pixels. And you can see when I highlight on it, you can see the highlighted bullet points, and you can for sure overwrite this with your CSS. And yeah, that was all for unordered lists. Now we also have an ordered list, so let's get to the ordered list. Here I'm gonna put lists and then I'll copy it under it just so I'll put so you understand it a lot on unordered list. So this is list as a whole, and under that we have unordered list. And now let's go to the ordered list. I said on order. Okay, unordered. Unordered list, ordered list. And the way we do an ordered list, I'm just gonna copy this unordered list. The difference between ordered and unordered is that instead of UL for unordered, an ordered list is, come on, guess it, it's not that hard. It's OL for ordered list. And now we save it, remove the dev tool so we can see it, and now we can see the order. Starts with banana, apple, mango, and papaya. Actually, this is the order of my favorite fruits, so That came in as a coincidence, but yeah. And what do we notice that is the difference between the ordered list and the unordered list? We can see that the ordered list replaces those bullet points in the unordered list with 1, 2, 3, 4. So what the ordered list does is that it automatically adds numbers to the list items. Now, unordered lists are usually used for website navigations. So when you see the contact me, about me, services, home, most of the time when you see that on a website, it's been done with an unordered list. Now, the next thing we're going to look at are tables. So I'm going to put a comment again and give a space and then tables and another space. And I'm going to leave the code for this on my GitHub. If you get over to my GitHub, follow me there too because I always update it. I'm always doing different things and it's nice for you guys to be part of that journey. And you will also be able to get notifications whenever I update my GitHub. So yeah, shameless plug out the way. But you know, I'm going to add a little bit of more shameless plugs. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you have any questions down below, put them in the comments. And yeah, let's get to it. Tables. And the way we make tables in HTML is that we start with a table tag. So write table, and then we press the tab, and then we press the tab again to create some space. And in a table tag, we have a head, and we call that a T head, short for table head. And also we have a T body, which is the table's body. And then we also have the T footer, which is the footer of the table. So we do it like this. We say T and then head. Press tab to create some space inside. And then we can also have the T body, create some space. And we can also have the T footer, or the T foot, not footer, the T foot, create some space. Basically, these are going to be the headings of each column. This T head is one row, and then each element in the T head has its own column. And the way we do it is we say TR for the row, and that is just short for table row. And then we press the tab to create some space inside it. And then each heading is going to have a TH tag for table head. And then we say name, TH again. We can say movie. And then we say rating. And I saved it right now. You can see below right here, we have name, we have movie, and we have rating. And what do you notice? They're all bolded because they are the heading, and this is the font style that was given to heading, the default font style for this table heads. And yeah, you can change this with CSS, but this is the default. This is how it comes. So this is how we're going to use it because this is a HTML tutorial. So this is the way we're going to use it. Now we need to do something because I don't want this to be placed right here. I don't want you to be looking at the bottom all the time. So we need to add some margin to this so that we can actually push it up a little bit. And this is some CSS. So like I said, keep your heads up for the CSS tutorial. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to put a div right here and I'll give it a style attribute and I'll say margin top 600 pixels. And we save it. And now you can see that we can scroll because we weren't able to scroll before, but now we can scroll. Now, when we look at our table, we can see that we have the table and then we have our T head. And inside our T head, we have a table row. And inside the table rows, we have different TH. And these are like table headers. And we have name, movies, and then ratings. Now, in the body, we're going to create another table row. And table row is TR. Press enter to create some space. And now we're not going to use th anymore because right now we're not dealing with the table heads. We're dealing with the data that the table is going to have. And the way we're going to write that is with a td. That is table data. And in the first row, we'll have three table datas. So we put td. hmm First one, we'll put Denzel Washington. I hope I spelled this right. Wash Washington. Hopefully it's right, but you know Denzel Washington. And then I'm gonna give movie Equalizer. I'm gonna give the movie name The Equalizer, and then I'll give it a rating of 8.5 out of 10. And now when we save this, you can see right here we have Denzel Washington name, movie The Equalizer, and then we have a rating of 8.5 all over 10. Equalizer is a nice movie. And now you can see that we have some data inside our table. And for sure we'll have more than one row. If not, this would be a really like boring table. And now I'm gonna put Leonardo DiCap DiCaprio. And for sure I'm putting The Wolf of Wall Street. Great movie. And this I'm giving a 9 out of 10. Save that and create another one. And the next person in the data will be Eddie Murphy. Movie Coming to America. Wow, what happened there? Coming, not in all caps. Coming to America. And yeah, I'll give that a rating of 9.5. I know this is subjective. Probably put down in the comments below what you rate these movies. This is my rating for these movies. And we'll just put one more. And person here is going to be Scarlett Johansson. I hope this is spelled right. Movie. I don't know, but I really liked her as Black Widow. It's gonna come up soon. Black Widow. And that it's not yet out, so I'm just gonna be fair and give it a 7.5. But I don't expect less from that movie. Yep. So now we can see the table with all the table data, and we could also add a table foot. And this table foot is optional. If you have some calculations here that you want them to have a result, then you put a table foot. In our case, there's nothing you can calculate here because these are individual tables like Denzel Washington, the equalizer, that's the movie he acted in, and then the rating of the movie. And I'm just going to give rating a capital. Yes, so we can see that there's nothing to calculate here. So this table footer, we don't need it here. If this rating is something that later would calculate and add everything up, then a table foot would be nice because then the solution or the answer to all the calculation would put it as the data in the table foot. What you notice with this table right here is that it looks a little bit ugly. There's no spacing, there's everything just looks cramped together. And this is where CSS comes in. This is why CSS is important. But this is a HTML tutorial. And if you were doing this, if you're doing a project with tables, this is how it would start. It would start looking this messy, and then you would go to the CSS section and add the styling to give it the spacing and maybe add some borders and yeah, just make it look like a real table. But just some history on HTML. Before we actually used tables to build the layout of the website and would use it to build the sidebar, the nav, the header, and all that stuff. But now HTML has evolved and we do things differently now. We only use tables for tabular data. We don't use it for anything else. We don't use it for layout. We use it for what a table is for. And that is just to actually make some tabular data, add your rows, add your columns. If you need to do some calculations, do them, put where the solution is, and that's all we use tables for. But what we use for website layouts is CSS. We do not use tables, do not use tables. It's the old way of doing things. You got to join the new way of doing things. So yeah, yeah, and that's it for tables. Now we're going to move to forms. And what we're using here, I will leave it on my GitHub so you'll be able to get this code and maybe reference it. You could even print it out. And yeah, just keep on learning. That's the way you're gonna get good at this. Keep on learning, love doing it, and don't be afraid of challenges. So the next part is forms. Now, one thing you have to know about forms is that with HTML, we can create the look display of the form and how it looks like. CSS adds some styling to it, and then we would need something like JavaScript or PHP to actually make the form functioning. That when we actually put some input into it, we would get that input stored somewhere. And if we wanted a desired output after the input, then the desired output would actually happen. Yeah, just wanted to let you know that before we start building it. So yeah, let's get to it. And the way we create a form in HTML is that we say form, then you press enter, and now you can see that right here we have our form opening tag, and we also have the closing tag. Now, this action right here, what is it? This is an attribute, and this attribute right here, it basically wants to submit the form to a page. And let's say, for instance, we want to submit this to a PHP page called contact.php. It would submit it to this page right here. And like the form could be maybe a newsletter or a registration form, and yeah, we would send it to this contact.php. And then after that, we could also have another attribute called method. You can see we have post here. This is basically just putting data into a server. And also get right here, when you put data in the server, the only thing is that the data, you actually see it on the URL. So with get, it's not that secure, but it still has its uses because sometimes you don't want it to be secure. You don't need it to be secure. So yeah, in that case, you can use get. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave this here as post, but I want you to remember that this has to do with advanced server-side programming. So this is not HTML. So I don't want you to focus on it or feel, oh, you don't really understand. You don't need to understand that right now. Just need to understand what we put inside this form right now. Now in our form, I want us to add a couple of labels. We'll put a label. So we create our label. You can see the for attribute. It's basically asking us, what is this label for? Yeah, for the label, I'm going to put first name. And after that, we'll put an input. And I hope you notice here, this input right here, it doesn't have a closing tag. It's just one. And you can see this input here has an attribute, which is text. They're different. You could also have number. So first here you can see we have button, checkbox, color, date, time, email, file hidden, images, number, month, password, radio, range. So there are different types of inputs. Let me just show you how radio looks like. Save it and you can see this bullet point right here that you can click on. So that's radio. But for here, since we're asking for username, we're asking for text. So that's why we put text there. And now we can see the input field for the text. And we could also have another attribute called the name attribute. And this has to do with server-side programming. This name attribute is how we would grab the value of the form that is being submitted. And for the name attribute, I'm just going to put first dash name. We can see that this input right here, it's way too close to our table. So what we're going to do here is we'll put a BR, and this is just a line break. We save it, and now we see a little bit more space. I can add another one, and we can see there's more space. So this is something useful sometimes. Normally we could do this with CSS, but I told you we're not touching CSS yet. The CSS video is going to come up after this. So yeah, and I'm just going to comment here, line break, because in case you have this code, just so you remember this. line break. Another thing we could also add is a HR, and this is a horizontal line. And when I save it, you can see this horizontal line that is between here. I'm gonna copy this again and then put below it a line break. And yeah, I'm gonna comment here and say horizontal line. Yeah. Now we save it and we can see the space. It looks nice. And yeah, now we can continue with the form. The next thing I'm gonna do is actually just copy this and change it to surname. Yeah, and I'm going to change this to surname. That is basically last name. And also here I'm going to put surname. We save it, and now we can see the two forms. It moved like this because of the it moved to the it moved right. You can see that this second input is showing up right here, and that's just because the screen is smaller. So when I increase the screen size, you can see that it's actually on the same line. If we wanted to make them not on the same line, we could do that with CSS too. We could also use the BR we just learned, and then you put a line break, and now you can see it's below it. Another way we could actually separate them instead of using the BR, the line break, and I think it's a better way, is actually just creating a div. So we'll wrap them inside a div, and do the same thing below. And now we save it, and you can see now that it's actually below it. And you know, a div is a block level element, so that's why it creates a new line when we actually create another div. So in this case, we have two divs. You can see right here, this is the closing div of the first div. And you can see the first opening, the second opening div, and then the closing div for the second div. And another thing I want to add is that right now, as you see them, the forms are way too close. There's no margin between them. There's no space between them. Just like we had the same problem when this was too close to this table right here. The way we could do it is we just use our good old friend BR, which is line break. And we save it, and you can see right now they're the same space. Could also add an email, so I just copy and paste this. I'll copy it with a line break, paste it, save it, and now we change what's inside. And this could be an email. And on the type, we would change it to email, because before HTML5, you would just use text, but now with HTML5, you can actually use email as a type. And then name, we just put email. Now, I'm sure you're looking at, oh, why is this slanted kind of? Well, this would be different if we had CSS, because with CSS, we could actually make them a block level element that would make them stay on the right position, independent of the space between them. So yeah, just watch out for CSS. Hopefully I'm making you excited for CSS, because at least right now, that's the good thing with HTML. Right now that we're using HTML, you can actually see why CSS is needed. And why this email type is actually better than text is that it adds some validation. It's not a strong validation because I could write a wrong email and it wouldn't still detect it. So you would need to regex for that. Don't have to worry about that. But for this right here, it does have some simple validation. And I want us to take this again, copy it. Now we paste it. And instead of email, we'll have message. And in here, we're not going to have an input. Instead, we'll have text area. I can see that text area actually comes with some more attributes. The first thing is text area is asking you for a name. Just like our input, it actually wants to see the value of whatever we want to submit, it wants to give it a name. It's also asking for an ID. With this ID, it would be unique to only this text area. So when we would use the ID, would actually be only referring to this text area. The next one, you can see column right here. And column is just basically how many columns do you want this text area to have. And the next attribute is row. And it's asking how many rows do we want. So if we created more rows, let me save it. And now you can see how big it is. Scroll down, you can see how big it is. See what happens when I add 20 rows. You can see it gets bigger. When I add 50 columns, it gets wider. So column is mainly the width, row is the height. Now you can see that this text area has an opening tag and a closing tag. And inside here we can say what message do you have? Put some dots. And I can see this is almost like a placeholder, and it says what message do you have. When you click on it, you can remove it and write whatever message you want. Yeah, and the name, if you're submitting to a server-side file, you would have a name. In this case, we'll just call it message. And we save that. So another kind of input field that we normally see in a form is a select. And I'm just gonna copy this. Actually copy it with the line break because I want some space between them. Save it. You can see now we have two text areas, but I removed the text area. Save it now. And inside here, I'll remove that. Move the message as its label. Now if we have a select list and we want you to choose your marital status, we'll just put marital status. Hopefully I spelled this wrong. I mean, hopefully I spelled this right. Martial status. I think it's marital status. Martial status. Well, mine is 0 if it's martial status. And below it would put a select. We'll give it a name. Marital. Mauritial. I think it's marital. No, let me check Google. Marital. Yeah, marital. And this ID is not needed because we're not using JavaScript or PHP for it. So I'm just gonna remove it. And now you can see what happened. There's this box right here, but it's empty. And that's because we haven't actually given this select different values. Now each select is gonna have an option. So we just call the option tag. And each option has a value, and this value is basically associated with that certain option. And in this case, we would say single. Here we'll put single. Move it a little bit. Move this a little bit. Yeah, create some space. Now just copy it, paste it. Here we'll say married. Married. And the next is divorce. Divorce. And the last one is widowed. Why in capital? Widow. Now we save it. And you can see that we have different. We have single, marriage, divorce, widowed. And you can choose whatever one. You can choose the marriage. You can choose the divorce. We're not going to choose the widowed because that's quite sad. But yeah, that is the different things you could do with a form. So you can see right here, the text that is actually going to be displayed, it's in between the option tag, in between the opening option tag and the closing option tag. And we have this value here, which is basically just wants to know the value that is associated with each option. Now the next one we could have is also, this label will be for age, and the type is number, and the name will be age. You can save it right here, and you can see it even has this where you can choose any number. It's basically telling you you can only put numbers in here, and that's the number input field. Another one we should do real quick is we'll put date of birth, and here we'll put date. Then we'll say dates to here, and we save that. And now you can see that this one is actually different. It gives you the month, the day, and then the year. Now you can see you have all this. That's really cool. You can choose May, mine is February 25th, and you put that. You can also put the year. You see you have different years. So this is a really nice thing to have, and that's why I just wanted to show this real quickly. And you can see that they're basically the same as the other ones we did. You just change the type, and yeah, you change whatever it's going to be inside here. And on the age, you could also add another attribute, which is value, and it's basically what's going to show there. So here I could put 40, save it, and now you can see it starts at 40, but you could always still change it up. Yeah, and just one real quick thing. I also want you to know that you also have like placeholders. And placeholders are another attribute, because before we would have to do like value, and then we would say enter your name, and then we save it, and now you can see enter your name right here. But then what we would have to do is actually use JavaScript to remove this whenever I click on it, and that is just unnecessary. So what we have right here is placeholder, and with a placeholder, you save it, you can see it's actually even not the same color as the value. And you can see right here now when we click on it, you can see it shows Samuel. And you can just, and when I put something inside, it actually removes by itself, it's gone. Before we'd have to do that with JavaScript, but with HTML5, they actually brought out this placeholder, which makes everything easy and nice, and yeah, just less of a pain in the buttocks. Now, before we finish with the form, what we need next is an input button. I would put input, and the type, I would give it submit. And when I save this, you can see right here we have a button that actually submits it. And we could give it a name of submit, and also add a value to it, and that will also be submit. And now when we actually click on the button, you can see that it got it got sent to contact.php. And I hope you remember where contact.php comes from. It comes from the form action, contact.php. Doesn't work, but you see the whole idea behind it. Now the next thing we're actually going to do is a button. So yep, we've gotten to buttons now, and just going to put a comment for that. Button, space, space. And yeah, we're going to use a button tag for this. So we just write button, and you can see Emmet abbreviation actually gives us. And yeah, press enter. Now inside this button, we'll write click me please. And yeah, when we scroll down, we can see right there, click me please. I'm just gonna put the usual BR, line break to create some space. Might create another one, BR, and then a HR, and then a BR again. And just as you see this button right here, it's not going to do anything because in order for you to actually make a button do something, you need to add some JavaScript to it. And yeah, this is a HTML tutorial, but you can see how they all need each other. And then you would add an event like on click. It was clicked before, but now it's on click. And then you would have some function right here that basically is going to be called when this button is clicked. I would have this function in our JavaScript. And I'm sure you've noticed that HTML doesn't do anything like functionality. And that's why it's not a programming language, it's a markup language because it's basically just structures everything. Yeah, so the next thing we're going to look at is the image tag. So comment right here, images. The tag for image is img, which is short for images. As you can see right here, we've been given two attributes. The first one is source, because actually the image tag on its own doesn't do anything because it doesn't know what image to take. So the source is asking us, where do we get this image from? And right here, I already did it. I have a folder with the name images, and inside that folder, I have this astronaut dabbing. And now to actually access it, we use the forward slash. And now you can see that VS Code is actually giving me some options. And then it's asking for images. And then I click on that. And then it's telling me the files inside images. In this case, only one. And I click on that. And when I save it, you can see the image right here. The astronaut dabbing. And now this alt right here is only used for if I want a text to show up if this image is not showing up. So in this text, I could put astro. And if this is not the right file name and we save it, you can see right here that we get this icon right here. And after that, we get astro, which we actually put in this alt right here. So that's what it's used for. It's text for if the image doesn't show up. So you can actually still have like a name of the image and in a way also know the image that is not showing up. So that's that for it. PG, I think that's a G there. We save it and the image shows up. But I'm just gonna copy this right here because I really like the whole spacing around each. Yeah. So now we can see there's some spacing before. Yeah. There's also a width and height attribute that you can use with HTML. I would advise you to do this in CSS, but since this is a HTML tutorial, I'm also going to show you how to do it in HTML. I'll just put width, say 250 pixels, and we save that. And now you can see the image there. It's 250 pixels, way smaller. And the thing with the height, we can also set the height, but right now it's set to auto, which is actually great. So if I put height auto, you can see nothing changes. If I put height now, 200 pixels, you can see it changes a little bit. So normally it's nice to sometimes only change the width because the height is going to be auto, which is great. And I also want you to notice that images, they're also inline. The only reason it's on a new line is because I added here the line break. If I remove this line break right here and save it, you can see it's on the same line like the button. So images are inline blocks. And now if you also wanted to, we could also wrap a link around this image. So we could just use an anchor tag. Hopefully you remember that. And then we take the closing anchor tag and put it after the image. We save that. And now I could just make it, go to YouTube. So then I could put an anchor tag right here, save it, and this is my YouTube channel. So now if we click on this, it takes us to my YouTube channel's webpage. Now we can go back. And as you remember, we could also do target. Could also do target and say underscore blank. Now, when we click on the image, we actually get a link that takes us to this place. Now, before we move to HTML semantic tag, the last thing I want to show you is actually quotations. Now, we have different quotation elements we can use, and the different types of quotation elements that we can use is block quotes, cite, and abbreviate. And let's start with block quotes. And as the name suggests, it's basically a quote in blocks. So click enter, and cite there we can say lorem, press enter. And this block quote takes an attribute called cite. And this right here, this cite right here, it actually is asking, oh, where does this quote come from? So you can see in this case, oh, it comes from YouTube, and yeah, and then we have our Lauren Ibsen, which has been styled. We have some padding, some margin. That's why it's actually placed right here in the block form. The next quotation element is the ABBR tag, or the abbreviation tag. And we do that by, we could have a P tag, and then I could say, I love CFC. And we save that. You can see I love CFC there. Then under CFC, I could just put the ABBR tag, and on the title there I can put the full. So I can say Chelsea Football Club, and we wrap it around. See, it comes with a closing tag, so we'll put that around there right there. And then we save it, and now you can see that CFC is underlined, and when we hover on it, we get the full meaning of the abbreviation. So that's what we use ABBR tags for. And the next quotation element is the cite tag. And we can just do that by putting a P tag, and I write, I love eating donuts. And we save that. And the next thing is we actually wrap eating in a cite tag. So give it some space and write cite. Put the closing there, and then we save it. And you can see that eating has this italic font style. So yeah, this is for sure. You can also do all this with CSS, but especially this right here, you can easily do it with CSS, but just wanted to show you how you can also do this with HTML. Now we've gone through the basics of HTML5 tags and all that. So yeah, this is really good. You will be able to get the code for this down below in my GitHub. So yeah, for sure. So you can actually maybe print them out and yeah, study it a little bit more. If you're a complete beginner, don't feel a certain way if you don't understand everything here. You're gonna learn with time. It takes time. So now let's talk about HTML semantics. Now we can see here HTML5 semantic tags. HTML5 semantic tags are used to clearly describe its meaning to the browser and the developer. Now you can see here we have header, footer, article, figure, section, nav, and aside. In this example, we have the header, which has the logo with the navigation. And then we have an article, which has some p tags and h1s. And then we have this figure, which could place an image. And then we have the footer. So this is what HTML5 semantic tags are. Yeah, okay guys, so we're going to create a new HTML page, and we're going to use the semantic tags to actually map out this web page. And the way we create a new HTML page is we go to the Explorer right here, you click on it, and then you can see we have file, new folder, refresh Explorer, and collapse folders in Explorer. We'll click on new file, and now we'll create a blog.html, and you click enter after that. So now we've created a new HTML page. And this is why Visual Studio Code, in my opinion, is the best when you're dealing with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because this is so easy. In another way, we would have to go to our file explorer here, click on that, then go to our folder, which is this right here, and then we would have to create a new folder and then put it in there. For me, that's a lot of work. But with VS Code, you just go to your file explorer here, and you do everything very seamlessly, very easy, and very fast. And just like with the index page, what we need first is we need to write our doc type, and you do that with the less than, and then you can see it gives us already doc type. You press enter, and after our doc type, what do we need? We need our HTML tag. Press HTML, you can see Emmet abbreviation. You click on that, and then we click on tab again to create some space. And inside the HTML tag, what do we need? We need two tags. The first one is our head tag. Press head, click enter, enter again to create space. And the second one is the body tag. So you write body, and then you press enter, and you've created that same space. So now on the head, what do we need? We need to write a title. So we'll give it a title. Now hopefully you know how to do this, but you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna remove everything, delete it, and show you a shortcut with Visual Studio Code. So with Visual Studio Code, what we just do is we make the exclamation mark, and right now we've gotten this, and then we press enter. And you can see it creates the whole thing for us. So we don't have to first start by creating the doc type, and then the HTML, and then putting the head, and then the body, and even putting all these meta tags. It does everything for us. That's one of the great things about Emmet Abbreviator and also VS Code, because it's so easy. And you can see even put a placeholder, which is document. But instead, I'm going to put my blog. Now we need to go to live server. But how do we go to live server? We click on the Explorer tab, and then we go to our file, blog.html, and then we right click. You can see open with live server. And now you can see my blog. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to also cancel this. And now we can work on this new HTML page we just created. Now to start with the HTML5 semantic tag, what we start with is our header. Click enter, create some space inside, and then we can put a h1 tag. And inside the h1 tag, if it's a logo, most of the time it's great to put an anchor tag inside. And then inside that anchor tag, we'll put logo. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference the other HTML page we just created. And the way we do that is with a forward slash, and then you can see index.html. Then we save that. So now in this page, when you click on this, it will take you to index.html. But as we've learned earlier, I don't want them to click this and leave this page. So what do? We use target. Say target, and then we say underscore blank. Save that. So now when you click on this logo, a new tab opens up for the HTML page that we created all this in. Just want you to know this is going to look ugly because we're not using CSS. We're just building the structure. And that is the whole purpose of this course. This is the foundation. You need a strong foundation to actually build those wonderful websites you see. They all start like this. Yeah, and now after the header, what we'll have is a section. And inside our section, since it's a blog post, we're going to have articles. You can see our article right down there. Click on article, press enter again to create space. And now inside this article, I want us to have a h3 tag that says like my life's journey. Save that, we can see that right there. And then under that, we're going to use the small tag. And this small tag is just basically to create like give more information to wherever it's in. So in this case, I'm going to say by Sam Codes. And we save that, and now we can see how the small tag is. And just in this section part, I'm going to put a HR because I want it to look a little bit structured. You don't have to do this, but I just want there to be a little bit of line in. And then we have another HR. Yeah. And you can see right here that the small tags actually make this text smaller. So that's why they're called small. And the next thing inside this article, we're also going to put a p tag, which is going to be actually what the my life's journey is about, and we'll put Lauren, put like 50, save that, and now we can see all that. And I'm sure you've been on multiple blog websites. What we're going to do is we're going to give this article a class. I'll give it a class of blog 1. And now we're going to create actually multiple articles. Copy that. And they're all going to be blog 1. Inside there I can put like, instead of my life's journey, we put my resume. Can put places I visited. I can also put here my career path. After the p tag, what we could add there, and this is very common in blog websites. Let me just reduce this a little bit. Yeah, so we can see the whole thing. What we'd have in blog websites is we'd also have a link that would open up this small, because the blog page would be more than this. The content in that, in like my life's journey, for sure would be more than this right here. So what we would do is that we created a tag, anchor tag. We don't need to set it anywhere. Sometimes you can put this hash right here. And after that, what we do is that we just write read more. And we save that, and now you can see read more below it. And what we do is we just take this right here, we copy it, and paste it, paste it. And yeah, we just basically do it for all of them. So now we can see how it looks, looking really nice. And if you're asking yourself, why is this inline block element readme, this anchor tag, why is it on a new line? The thing is that the p tag right here is a block element. So because the p tag is a block element, it just pushes the anchor tag down, because at the end it's a block element, so it doesn't need anything in its own line. So that's how that works. Now what we should also add is an aside, or you can also call it a side, depending on what you like. And we just say aside, and we'll do it outside our section right here. And inside the aside we'll have a UL, and inside this UL we'll have LIs, and inside the LIs we'll have anchor tags, which are links. And here we can just take the H1s, which are here, my life journey, and put it inside there, save it, copy it, and then put another one, another one, another one, another one. Put career path, places to visit. Okay, so they're just 4. So I remove this one right here. Yep. Now I'm gonna remove this HR. And yeah, what we'll also do is we'll give them a H3 tag that says categories. And you can also see that when we put this hash here, this just means that we actually want it to stay on the same page. So now if I click on it, you see it doesn't go anywhere, it just stays where it is, instead of actually leaving it empty. And usually we would have CSS to actually float this or move it, use some display flex to actually move it to the side, but we're not doing CSS here. So I'm just going to put this HR here to differentiate them, and the HR here too. And just right under, I'm going to put a H1 tag, say aside. And also just below this, I'm going to put another H1 tag and say section and article. I don't mean the tag article, I mean the word article. So yeah, it might look a little bit messy, but I just want you to see the, and for the H1 tag, we'll put a, I'll say header. You can see it, header, section, and article. Then we have the aside right here. And usually when you're actually dealing with navigation, as we're doing right here, what you would do is you would put this UL into this nav tag right here. And now we put it after it. And yeah, and then after of course, you would add some CSS to it to really style it the way you want it to be, so it can actually look like a navigation. So I'm just going to put aside and nav. Now the next thing we're going to have is we're going to have our footer. So we just put the footer tag. The next thing we're going to have is a p tag, and inside the p tag we're going to have our copyright. Save that. Now we can see the copyright right below it, right below here. We have the special symbols that you can use, and there's always a code with them. And the way we do that is this ampersand or the and sign. With this ampersand or the and sign, and then we say copy, and then a semicolon. You can see that VS Code is already giving us that. So you press that right there, save it, and now we can see that copyright symbol right here. And after that, we just put my first website. And one thing I want to do is that I want to put this nav right here in this aside. Instead of making it a nav like this, I'm going to copy this and actually put it in the header. And then save that. And quite alright with CSS, this header right here would have the logo right here, and then we'd move this to the side right here. We'll move it to the right, and then we'll also add some flex to it. And this is all CSS, so I'm not going to go deep into that. And right here in the aside, and in this aside, what I'm going to do is put an image tag. I can see right here, it's asking for a source. Put this right here, and remember we also have, you can change the width, put the width to 200 pixels, and the all to say as, say astronauts, hope I spelled that right, dabbing. Now we save that, and yeah, so this is our aside. And right now I'm just gonna edit this again and make it just a nav, and then here would be header and nav. Yeah, I feel I prefer it this way. And also on the copyright, after the copyright, we should also always put the year, so 2021, and then we say, put a comma and say my website, my first website. And the bigger your websites get, the more you're gonna have like multiple headers maybe, or multiple navs, or multiple H1s and multiple sections, multiple articles. And it's always good practice to give them an ID or give them a class name. Give this header an ID, name of main header, and I'll give the footer right here an ID name of main footer. Now you can see right here I'm using camel notation. Camel notation is when you start with a capital when you're adding new words, but the first word actually starts with all small letters. So that's what camel notation is, and that's why it looks like this. Now, I don't want to actually use CSS, but I just want to make this look a little bit better. So we're going to add a little bit of CSS to this. And I think this would be a nice introduction to the next video that's coming up. And the way we add the CSS is that we write style inside the head. I can see right now we've gotten this style. You can see right now we've gotten this style tag. Press enter to create space inside. And now what we're going to do is we're going to call this main header. And the way we do that in CSS is we use the hash or the number sign, and then after that we actually put the name. So main header, and then use a curly bracket after that and press enter. And now the way CSS works is that they work with a property and value base. And what I mean by property and value base is that if you want to give a CSS some styling, you have to first start with the property. So in this case, we want to give it a background color. So we'll say background color, which is the property, and then we'll give it a value. And then in this case, we'll give it a black. Save that, and now you can see we have that all black. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to give it a display, and we'll give it a flex. Let me save that. Now, after that, you don't really need to know what this display flex does. We're going to talk about all this. But after that, what we're going to do is I'm going to say justify content, and I want some space around. And now you can see how it is. You can see we have the logo right here, and then we have our nav links right here. And what I'm just going to do is this right here, instead of putting it here, I'm going to turn this into a comment because I feel it would look better without that right there. So now you see it's gone, but we have it right here. And also right here, I'm going to change this to a comment, just copy and paste it. And now I hope you've seen the usefulness of comments. Is that right now, this is all for you. This is information for you to know so you can understand it better. And also here, copy the aside. Create another comment, aside. And also here, footer. And now, since we also gave our footer an ID name of main footer, I want us to add some CSS styling to that. And the way we do that, if you remember, since we're calling the ID, call the ID with a hash, and then the name of the ID, and then a curly bracket. And after the curly bracket, we start with the property. So in this case, I want to say align items, and I want to put in the center. I also want to give it a background color of black. I'm going to save it. And also I want to add some padding to it. So add a padding of 10 pixels. And then we add a padding of 10 pixels. And we can see it right here, but we don't see the words. So how do we change the text? We just use color. with color, we give it white. We save that, and now you can see it. And in this case, align item, not align items. My bad. Align text. Say text align center. So now we see it's gone in the center. Yeah, my bad. It's not align items. It's text align because we're aligning the text. In this case, I'm also going to give font size of 20 pixels. Yeah, so we can see it a little bit more. So now we can see the website and it's looking quite nice. We have our footer right here. We have our logo, our header with our nav links. The anchor tag, what I'm going to do with the anchor tag is I want to remove the color that is there. So I'll say text decoration and put in none. So now we can see that that on the line is no more there. And another thing I'm going to add is a color of tomato red. So now we can see that all the anchor tags are actually tomato red color. You can also do this in Visual Studio Code and choose the color you want. So you can have something like that. And this is just me giving you a little bit of introduction to CSS. I hope it's not too much, but yeah, the video is coming soon for the CSS, so keep your heads up for that. Yeah, something gray like this. Now the last thing we're going to touch on is this meta tags. And like this one right here, when we're creating our own meta tag, we just write meta. And the first thing a meta tag has is an attribute, which is a name attribute. And in this name, we're going to tell Google that this is a description of our page. And then it's going to have a content attribute, which is basically like, what is your content all about? And in this case, we'll say content, and then we say my amazing blog by Sam, by Sam Codes. And after that, you'll close it like that. And now we can also add some keywords. And the way we do that is the same way. We say meta and we give it a name of keywords. And then after the name, we'll also have a content again. And the content we could have web design. And you separate each keyword with a comma. Then we could have Sam Codes, the name of your company. And then you could also have coding along. And then you could also have blog post. And you can also have travel. You can also have vacation. And then travel life. And you can see that when we save this, nothing actually changes on our web page. And that's because number one, we put this on the head. And when you put stuff on the head section, it is not for the web page. It's for the browser and it's also for things like Google. But if we actually look at the source code with Control U, you can see that everything is there, description, keyword. You can even see all the comments, header and nav, section article and all that. So you can see the image right there. And yeah, you can see live server too. And what actually makes the JavaScript that makes live server work. And the last thing we're actually going to do is we're going to link these two pages we just created. Remember, we have an index.html and we also have this blog.html. So in the blog.html, where we're going to put it is, we'll put it on the image. And how do we do that? If you remember, we'll put the image in an A tag and an anchor tag, and then we just take this anchor tag right here and we move it to here. And inside here, use the / and then we press index.html. And now we save it. So right now in this website, if you click on the image, it takes us here. And we can even change that a little bit and put the target. So we put that as an attribute for not the image, but for the anchor tag. So we could put it right here. We say target, and then we say underscore blank. Save that. And now click on this, and now you see it takes us to our my first web page. We can also go to our index page, and in our index page, just before the headings, what we'll do right here is we'll put an anchor tag, and the anchor tag, we do the same thing, / and then we press blog, click on blog, and then here we'll say go to my blog. Now we save that, and this way we go here, and then after, gonna increase this so we can actually see it. Can go to the blog. So now you can see that we're basically interchanging between the pages. And I can just add a HR to make it look better. Yeah, you can see this creates a new page, and then this one actually goes with that page, and then we create another page, and then this goes with the same page. Yeah, so hopefully you understand it, and yeah, really nice project. And okay guys, I think this is enough right now, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you got to this part, thanks for that, and that just shows you're serious and actually want to learn this. Wish you all the best, and yeah, if you're a subscriber of mine, yeah, probably you know that I do more advanced stuff, so probably you should know all this. But if you're not a subscriber, then yeah, subscribe to the channel, like the vid if you liked it. If you didn't like it, you can also dislike it. And yeah, that's it for now. And for sure, we'll be having more content, especially the part 2, which will be basically all about CSS. And then we'll switch it up to JavaScript after that. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap things up and keep things moving. See you in the next YouTube video.